Some British cars were fast. Some were beautiful. But the cars on this list earned their reputation the hard way. They survived decades of abuse, impossible mileage, and conditions that destroyed ordinary vehicles. Many are still running today, proving why owners called them built like tanks. Stay until number 1, because many enthusiasts still believe it's the toughest British vehicle ever built. Number 10. Morris Minor 1000. When a Morris Minor 1000 arrived in 1956, nobody expected it to become one of Britain's toughest survivors. It wasn't built for speed. It wasn't designed to impress. It was simply built to keep going. That simple philosophy turned the Minor into one of the most dependable British cars ever produced. Its lightweight body, proven A-series engine, and uncomplicated mechanical design meant owners could maintain it without expensive equipment or specialist knowledge. For many families, it became the kind of car that simply refused to leave the driveway because there was never a good reason to replace it. Throughout Britain, Morris Minor 1000s worked everywhere. They carried families on holidays. They delivered parcels across towns. They serve as driving school cars, postal vans, and even police vehicles. While many modern cars struggled to survive a decade, countless Minors stayed on the road for 20, 30, and even 40 years with remarkably few serious mechanical failures. Their greatest strength wasn't power. It was simplicity. If something eventually wore out, replacement parts were inexpensive, repairs were straightforward, and thousands of owners happily fixed them at home over a weekend. The unexpected fact? Some Morris Minor 1000s have traveled well over 500,000 miles, often with rebuilt engines, but still using much of their original body and chassis. Even today, nearly 70 years after production began, it's still perfectly normal to see one being driven daily on British roads. For a modest family car, that's an extraordinary legacy. And remarkably, it wasn't even the toughest machine on this list. Number 9. Land Rover Series 3. By the early 1970s, the Land Rover had already earned a reputation for going places where ordinary vehicles simply gave up. Then came the Series 3. It didn't look glamorous. It didn't offer luxury. But if your destination was at the top of a mountain, across a muddy field, or deep in the African wilderness, this was the vehicle you wanted beside you. The secret wasn't cutting-edge technology. It was old-fashioned engineering done properly. The Series 3 used a strong ladder-frame chassis, solid axles, simple four-wheel drive components, and engines designed to keep running even in harsh conditions. Farmers, the military, utility companies, and explorers all trusted it because it could usually be repaired with basic tools, even hundreds of miles away from the nearest workshop. Its durability quickly became legendary. Across Britain, these vehicles spent decades pulling trailers, carrying livestock, crossing flooded tracks, and working every single day with very little complaint. Around the world, they faced deserts, jungles, mountains, and freezing winters that destroyed many other vehicles. Yet the Series 3 kept moving. Owners often joked that rust would destroy the body long before the engine finally gave up. Many examples survived decades of hard labor before receiving restorations that put them straight back to work again. The incredible fact? Thousands of Land Rover Series 3s built during the 1970s are still working today in some of the world's toughest environments. In many remote villages across Africa and Australia, vehicles that are more than 50 years old remain an essential part of daily life. For most cars, reaching old age is an achievement. For the Land Rover Series 3, it was simply another day's work. Number 8. Austin Cambridge A60. The Austin Cambridge A60 never became a poster car. It wasn't the fastest. It wasn't the most exciting. But ask anyone who owned one, and they tell you the same thing. It just wouldn't die. Introduced in 1961, the A60 was designed to be a dependable family saloon rather than a flashy showroom attraction. Underneath its conservative styling was a tough mechanical package built to cope with Britain's rough roads and the daily punishment of constant use. Its reliable 1.6-liter B-Series engine quickly earned a reputation for lasting hundreds of thousands of miles when properly maintained. Mechanics loved working on it because everything was simple, accessible, and built to last. That reputation soon spread beyond ordinary families. Taxi operators chose the A60 because downtime meant lost income, and the Cambridge rarely stayed off the road for long. Businesses relied on it for daily transport, while countless owners kept the same car for decades instead of replacing it every few years. The suspension was strong enough to handle overloaded boots, poor road surfaces, and endless motorway journeys without falling apart. Even after years of hard work, many examples remained surprisingly solid. What made the A60 so special wasn't speed. It was trust. Owners started the engine each morning expecting it to work, and almost every time, it did. The remarkable fact? Long after production ended in 1969, thousands of Austin Cambridge A60s continued serving as taxis and everyday family cars throughout Britain and overseas. Even today, well-preserved examples still drive reliably more than 60 years after they first rolled off the production line. Sometimes, the strongest cars aren't the ones everyone remembers. They're the ones that quietly refuse to disappear. Number 7. Jaguar XJ6 Series I. When the Jaguar XJ6 Series I arrived in 1968, it wasn't just expected to be luxurious. It had to prove that a luxury car could also be incredibly durable. Thankfully, it delivered. Powered by Jaguar's legendary XK straight-six engine, the XJ6 combined smooth performance with remarkable reliability. While many luxury cars became expensive nightmares as they aged, the XJ6 earned a reputation for covering enormous distances without major engine problems when properly maintained. Business executives loved its comfort. Police forces appreciated its performance. And long-distance drivers discovered that it could cruise for hours with effortless ease. Its strong monocoque body and robust mechanical design helped many examples survive decades of daily use. Even today, classic car enthusiasts regularly drive XJ6s on long road trips instead of keeping them locked away in garages. The surprising fact? Many original XK engines have covered well over 300,000 miles, proving that elegance and durability could exist in the same British car. Number 6. Triumph Herald. At first glance, the Triumph Herald looked far too stylish to be one of Britain's toughest cars. Appearances were deceiving. Introduced in 1959, the Herald featured a separate chassis instead of a conventional monocoque body. That unusual design made repairs surprisingly simple. Damaged body panels could often be replaced without major structural work, helping countless Heralds stay on the road for decades. Its dependable four-cylinder engine was equally impressive. Mechanically straightforward and inexpensive to repair, it became one of those engines that owners simply trusted. If something eventually wore out, parts were affordable and widely available. The Herald also became popular with driving schools because it tolerated inexperienced drivers remarkably well. Many examples survived years of learner abuse before being sold to private owners and continuing their lives. Its greatest strength? Everything about the car was designed to be repaired rather than replaced. The incredible fact? Thousands of Triumph Heralds remain roadworthy today, more than 60 years after production began, making them one of Britain's longest-lasting everyday classics. Number 5. Rover P6 when Rover. Introduced the P6 in 1963, many people believed it was years ahead of its competition. But its greatest achievement wasn't technology. It was strength. The P6 featured an advanced engineering design with a rigid safety cell surrounded by easily replaceable outer panels. This construction not only improved crash protection, but also helped many cars survive damage that would have written off ordinary saloons. Under the bonnet, Rover's engines proved equally dependable. Later V8 power versions became especially famous for combining smooth performance with outstanding longevity. Owners quickly realized they had bought something special. Whether commuting through cities or covering thousands of motorway miles, the P6 developed a reputation for reliability that few executive cars could match. Many remained in daily service well into the 1980s and beyond, long after most of their rivals had disappeared from British roads. The remarkable fact? A surprising number of Rover P6s still wear much of their original structure today, a testament to just how well they were engineered more than 60 years ago. Number 4. Range Rover Classic. When the original Range Rover appeared in 1970, it created an entirely new type of vehicle. Luxury and toughness had finally met. Most four-wheel drives of the time were designed purely for work. The Range Rover proved that you could enjoy comfort without sacrificing durability. Its aluminum body panels resisted corrosion better than many rivals, while its rugged ladder-frame chassis and permanent four-wheel drive system allowed it to conquer terrain that stopped ordinary cars in their tracks. Farmers trusted it. Royal families drove it. Explorers crossed continents in it. Perhaps no other British vehicle demonstrated its toughness more dramatically. Range Rover Classics completed expeditions across deserts, mountains, frozen landscapes, and dense jungles, often returning home with little more than scratches and stories. Owners discovered something remarkable. Even after decades of hard off-road use, many examples remain mechanically strong enough to continue working every single day. The amazing fact? Some original Range Rover Classics are still being used on farms today, more than 50 years after they first entered production. That level of durability helped turn the Range Rover into one of Britain's greatest automotive legends. Number 3. Mini 1000. Looking at the Mini 1000, you'd never imagine it belonged on a list of Britain's toughest cars. It was tiny, it was lightweight, and it seemed almost too small to survive decades of punishment. Yet that's exactly what happened. Its simple A-Series engine became one of the most reliable engines Britain ever produced. Cheap to repair, easy to maintain, and incredibly durable, it allowed countless Minis to remain on the road long after larger cars had disappeared. Owners drove them everywhere. Through crowded cities, across the countryside, even in motorsport, where Minis endured punishment far beyond what their designers had ever imagined. The compact size also worked in its favor. With fewer complicated components, there was simply less that could go wrong. The unbelievable fact? Many Mini 1000s have survived for more than 60 years and continue serving as daily drivers, proving that toughness has absolutely nothing to do with size. Sometimes, the smallest machine turns out to be one of the hardest to kill. Number 2. Austin FX4 Taxi. Few British vehicles have worked harder than the Austin FX4. Introduced in 1958, London's famous black cab wasn't designed to impress. It was designed to survive. Day after day, year after year, these taxis carried passengers through one of the busiest cities in the world. Stop-start traffic, rough roads, endless idling, and hundreds of thousands of miles would destroy most cars. The FX4 simply kept going. Its strong ladder-frame chassis, dependable diesel engines, and incredibly simple mechanical layout made it one of the toughest commercial vehicles Britain had ever built. Taxi owners depended on reliability because every day off the road meant lost income. The FX4 rarely disappointed. Mechanics became so familiar with the car that almost every repair was straightforward, while replacement parts remained widely available for decades. Many cabs stayed in service for 20 or even 30 years before finally being retired. And even then, many found a second life in private ownership. The incredible fact? Some Austin FX4 taxis covered well over 1 million miles during their working lives. Very few passenger cars in history can make that claim. For sheer endurance, almost nothing on British roads could match London's legendary black cab. Number 1. Land Rover Defender, 90. If there is one British vehicle that truly deserves the title built like a tank, it's the Land Rover Defender. Introduced as the 90 in 1983 before later becoming known as the Defender, this wasn't just another four-wheel drive. It became a global symbol of durability. Everything about it was designed for survival. Its heavy-duty ladder-frame chassis, solid axles, aluminum body panels, and proven four-wheel drive system allowed it to tackle conditions that would destroy ordinary vehicles within days. Around the world, Defenders worked where roads didn't exist. They carried rescue teams through floods. They transported supplies across deserts. They climbed rocky mountain tracks and crossed rivers that most drivers wouldn't even attempt. Perhaps its greatest strength was its simplicity. Even in remote villages thousands of miles from the nearest dealership, Owners could often repair a Defender using basic tools and mechanical knowledge. That reliability made it the vehicle of choice for farmers, military units, aid organizations, and explorers for decades. Many Defenders have now spent over 40 years working in some of the harshest environments on Earth, and many are still nowhere near retirement. The astonishing fact? It's estimated that around 70% of all Land Rover Defenders ever built are still on the road today. Very few vehicles in automotive history can match that incredible survival rate. When people say a British car was built like a tank, this is the vehicle they're talking about. These cars weren't remembered because they were the fastest or the most luxurious. They earned legendary status because they simply refused to give up. Decades later, many are still proving that proper engineering can outlast almost anything. So, which of these British machines do you think was truly built like a tank? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to UKTorque for more incredible stories from Britain's automotive history.